For 1,000 years, the sword waited. It stood alone in the heart of a forgotten mountain. Hidden beneath snow and stone, surrounded by silence, the blade was tall and curved, glowing faintly with blue light. No one had touched it in centuries. Wind blew across the peaks, ice gathered around its hilt, and still it stood quiet, watching. Waiting. Rail didn't believe in old stories. He was a human explorer, young and curious, with sand-colored hair and a backpack full of tools. He didn't come to the mountain to become a hero. He only came because of the dreams. Every night for the past month, Rail had seen the same dream. A sword shining under stars, a voice calling him to the mountain. The dream felt real. It pulled at him like a whisper in his chest, so he followed it. He climbed over rocky paths, crossed frozen rivers, and slept under a cold sky. Others had told him not to go, that it was just a legend, but he couldn't stop. Now he stood at the mountain's highest point, staring at the sword that should not exist. It was even more beautiful than in his dreams. Strange markings covered the stone around it, alien letters that glowed soft blue, like tiny fires. Beneath the surface, the sword itself had a handle shaped like wings, and a long line of crystal ran down the middle of the blade. Rail stepped forward, breath fogging in the air. He didn't know why his heart was beating so fast. Maybe it was the cold. Maybe it was the feeling that something was watching. He reached out. The sword pulsed. The markings flared with light, and with both hands, Rail gripped the sword and pulled. At first, it didn't move. The stone held tight, as if it didn't want to let go. But then a soft sound, like ice cracking. Light poured out from the stone, and the sword lifted free with a smooth, singing sound. Rail stumbled back, holding it in shock. The wind stopped. Everything fell quiet, and then he heard a voice. Not with his ears, but in his mind. A deep, cold voice that growled like thunder. Not you, human. Before he could move, the light around the sword exploded upward. It swirled into the air, forming the shape of something tall, strong, and glowing. Rail dropped the sword and backed away. From the light, a figure stepped forward, a woman. She wore armor made of smooth black plates, and her eyes glowed with blue fire. Her hair floated behind her like smoke, and in her hand, she held a copy of the same sword Rail had just lifted. She looked at him with sharp eyes. I waited 1,000 years, she said, her voice echoing in the cold. And this is what the stars sent me. Rail raised his hands. Wait, who are you? She stepped closer. I'm Valshi, last of the star-born Bladesingers. This sword was not meant for your kind. I didn't mean to take it, Rail said quickly. I only followed the dream. She studied him for a long moment. Her face was calm, but her eyes were filled with something deeper, loss, anger, and maybe even sadness. The sword called to you, she said softly. That should not be possible. Rail looked at the sword on the ground. It was still glowing slightly, like it remembered him. I didn't mean to upset anything, he said. I needed to know if the dream was real. Valshi didn't answer. Instead, she turned and looked at the mountains around them. The wind had started again, soft and slow. This place, she said, was once the heart of a mighty world. My people guarded the stars. We lived by honor, by skill, by truth. And when war came, we did not run. What happened to them? Rail asked. Her voice dropped. They fell. All of them. I was the last, so I sealed my soul in the sword, waiting for one strong enough to carry it forward. One who could bring back the star-born way. Rail frowned. And you think I'm not the one? You are human, she said. You speak too much. You fear too much. Your people build machines but forget the spirit. You are clever but untrained. Rail gave a small shrug. Maybe you're right. I'm not a warrior. But the sword let me lift it, didn't it? Valshi narrowed her eyes. It responded to something. But you have not proven yourself. He stepped closer, picking up the sword again. Then test me, teach me. If you think I'm not ready, help me get ready. Valshi looked at the sword, then back at him. She raised an eyebrow. You would risk your life for a weapon you don't understand? It's not the sword, Rail said quietly. It's the dream, the feeling that something's wrong out there, and I'm supposed to do something about it. Valshi was silent for a long time. Then she stepped back and pointed to the path behind her, a steep trail leading deeper into the mountain. If you truly wish to carry this blade, she said, then follow me. The trials will show whether you are worthy. But I warn you, human, if you fail, the sword will leave you forever. Rael looked at the path, then back at her. He nodded. I'm ready. Valshi turned and walked into the glowing light, and Rael followed. The path was narrow and cold. Snowflakes floated down from the gray sky, and wind howled through the broken rocks. Rael followed Valshi without a word. Her steps were silent. Her black armor didn't make a sound. She moved like someone who had walked this mountain 1,000 times before. Rael kept one hand on the sword, still unsure if it truly belonged to him. It felt warm in his grip, like it remembered being held again. But Valshi's voice still echoed in his head. Not you, human. They entered a cave. Blue lights lit the walls, glowing gently like stars frozen in ice. The floor was smooth and curved, shaped by hands long gone. Strange writing circled the entrance, same as the markings near the sword. Valshi finally stopped and turned to face him. This is the Hall of Trials, she said. Here, warriors once came to test their heart, their mind, and their strength. If they passed, they were called Bladesingers. If they failed, she didn't finish the sentence. Rael looked around. The hall felt ancient. The walls hummed softly, like they were alive with memory. Valshi pointed ahead. 3 stone doors stood in the cave, each with a symbol, a flame, an eye, and a hand. You must pass all 3 trials, she said. Not for me, not for the sword. For yourself. Rael took a breath. Let's start. Valshi raised her hand and pointed to the door with the eye. First, she said, the trial of focus. The door slid open without a sound. Rael stepped through. Inside, the room was empty. No enemies. No puzzles, just silence. Suddenly, the walls shifted. The air changed. Rael blinked and he wasn't in the cave anymore. He stood in a room that looked like his old home. The small kitchen, the broken chair, the old pitcher of earth on the wall. It was warm and safe. He heard a voice. Why leave comfort, Rael? Why suffer for a sword that isn't yours? Rael turned. A copy of himself stood behind him. Same face. Same clothes, but his eyes were hollow. You're not real, Rael said. The other Rael smiled. I'm the part of you that knows the truth. You're not a fighter. You're just a boy chasing a dream. Rael looked around. Everything here was too perfect, too easy. I didn't come here to be safe, he said. I came to change. I came to help. The other Rael laughed. You help a whole galaxy? You'll get lost, or worse. Rael took a deep breath. Maybe, but I'd rather try and fail than sit and do nothing. The false room shook. The voice vanished, and once again, Rael stood. In the cave, Valshi stood outside the door, arms crossed. You saw your doubt, she said. Rael nodded. Yeah, but I didn't let it win. Valshi gave a small nod. Then you passed. She walked to the door with the flame symbol. Now, she said, the trial of strength. The door opened. Rael stepped inside. This room was dark and hot. Red light glowed from cracks in the ground. Rael heard a low growl. A creature stepped out of the shadows. It was made of molten rock and glowing smoke, tall and wide, with eyes like burning coals. It didn't roar. It didn't rush. It just watched Rael. Rael pulled out the sword. The blade shined with a gentle blue glow. It felt too light for such a big task. The beast swung its giant arm. Rael jumped aside just in time. He didn't try to fight head-on. Instead, he ran between the cracks, using speed, not strength. He watched, he waited, and then he saw it. The creature's back had a soft spot, a faint flicker of light. Rael moved fast. He slid under the beast and tapped the glowing spot with the sword. The creature let out a sharp sound and melted into smoke. The room cooled. The red cracks faded. Rael stood, breathing hard. Back in the hallway, Valshi watched him exit. You face the flame beast, she said. Must try to strike it from the front. I'm not the strongest. Rael said, smiling. But I can think. She gave a small smile back. That is also strength. She walked to the final door. The one with the hand. This is the hardest, she said softly. The trial of unity. The door opened. Rael walked in. This room looked like a battlefield. Ruins, fire, fallen ships, all around him. Alien warriors lay broken. Some looked like Valshi. Some were from races he had never seen. Rael walked through the field. His heart felt heavy. Then he heard a cry, a small voice. Weak. He followed the sound and found a young alien girl. Her skin was silver blue. She held a broken arm and sat beside a crashed shuttle. She looked up at him with wide eyes. Help, she whispered. Rael looked around. No one else was near. Then another voice echoed across the field. Leave her, it said. She is not your kind. Your mission is ahead. Rael shook his head. No. He knelt beside the girl and gently lifted her. You're not alone. He whispered. He walked with her through the field. The scene faded. Once again, he stood in the cave. Valshi's expression had changed. She looked at him not with anger or doubt but with something else. Respect. You chose kindness, she said. I chose unity, Rael said. That's what we need, isn't it? Not just warriors, but people who care. Valshi was quiet for a long time. Then she bowed slightly. You have passed the trials, human. Rael blinked. So, I'm worthy. Valshi looked at the sword. In his hand, the blade glowed brighter than before. I still don't know why it chose you, she said. But I cannot deny that it has. Rael smiled. Then what happens now? She turned toward a deep tunnel at the end of the cave. Light shimmered there. Now, she said, we go where the sword wants us to go. Rael nodded. And together, they walked into the unknown. The tunnel stretched far below the mountain. It was warmer here, and the air had a soft glow. Strange plants grew along the walls, glowing like stars trapped in glass. As Rael and Valshi walked deeper, the silence between them slowly changed. Valshi, once distant and cold, now walked beside him like a guide, not just a guard. She still watched him with careful eyes, but she no longer looked at him like a mistake. Rael broke the silence. You said this place was built by your people? She nodded. Yes. The Starborn used to train here before the Great Fall. Each trial tested not just the body, but the soul. We believe power without purpose was dangerous. Rael looked at his sword. Then why would it choose someone like me? Valshi stopped walking. That is still a mystery. But the blade does not lie. It saw something in you even if I don't understand it yet. They reached a circular chamber. In the center stood a smooth stone pedestal, surrounded by a soft red glow. Valshi stepped toward it and placed her hand on the top. The floor lit. Up. Walls shifted. The pedestal sank into the ground. And a new doorway opened before them. Rael stepped closer. Another trial. No, she said. This is different. This is the path of fire. She looked at him. Are you ready to face memory? Rael frowned. Memory? Valshi didn't answer. She just walked forward. Rael followed. Inside the new room, the air shimmered like heat rising from desert sand. The ground was dark glass, and the ceiling reflected stars that were not Earth's. Rael looked around. Where are we? Valshi's voice was quiet. We're in a memory room. It holds pieces of the past mine and others. It shows what was lost. Rael watched as the room began to change. The glass melted into images. A beautiful city appeared, floating towers, silver bridges, airships flying across the sky. Alien children played in glowing parks. Music drifted through the air like wind. This was Zereth, Valshi said. My home world. Long ago. Rael's eyes widened. It's beautiful. She nodded slowly. Yes, but it didn't last. The city darkened. Sirens echoed. Flames rose. Shadows covered the towers, and ships fell from the sky. Black machines, cold and sharp, marched through the streets. They weren't alive. They didn't speak. They just destroyed. Valshi stood still, watching it all. Rael looked at her. These were the ones who ended your people? Yes. She whispered. The Karate Dominion. Machines made to conquer. They feared the Starborn. They called us dangerous, so they erased us. Rael stepped forward. But you survived. I fought, Valshi said. But I was only one. The sword could not stop them alone. I sealed myself inside it, hoping someone would return one day and carry it again. Rael looked down. And now it's me, Valshi. Turned to him. Yes, you carry more than a blade now. Rael, you carry memory. You carry a promise. Rael looked at the images of the fallen city. Then I want to help fix it. The vision faded. Only darkness remained. And then light again. But not from memory. From a map. Stars lit up the walls. Hundreds, thousands. All moving slowly in a large spiral. Rael recognized it. That's the galaxy. Valshi pointed to a small, pulsing blue dot. That is Earth. She pointed to another, deep within a red mist, and that is Zereth. What is left of it? Rael looked between the two dots. So far apart, you think your people are still there? He asked. I don't know, she replied. But the sword glowed when you touched that place. I believe it called you for a reason. Maybe Zereth is still alive. Maybe my people are. Waiting, Rael stepped forward. Then let's go. Valshi raised an eyebrow. You wish to leave your world, travel across the stars, just to help people you've never met. Rael nodded. That's what unity means, right? You said it yourself. If we don't help each other, we all fall. Valshi looked at him, her eyes unreadable. Then, slowly, she placed her hand on his shoulder. You may not be a warrior, Rael, she said, but you have something strong or heart. He smiled. I'll take that as a compliment. She turned toward another passage. Then come. We must return to the surface. There's something you need to see. The climb back up the mountain took hours, but it didn't feel long. Rael felt different now, stronger, not just in body, but in purpose. When they reached the surface, night had fallen. Stars filled the sky. Rael looked up at them, then at Valshi. Do you think we can really find Zereth? I believe the sword remembers, she said, and if it remembers, it can guide us. She lifted her hand from her palm. A small silver cube floated into the air. It expanded, glowing, and formed a circular platform hovering just above the ground. This is a wayfinder, she said. It will lead us. But we'll need a ship. Rael smiled. Good thing I have one. Valshi raised an eyebrow. Truly? Rael nodded. It's old, a bit rusty, and kind of slow, but it still flies. I call it the Rook. She gave him a curious look. Strange name for a ship. Rael grinned. It's from a game humans play. The Rook moves in straight lines but never backwards. Valshi's expression softened, fitting. Together, they stepped onto the platform. It floated up and shot into the night sky. As they rose above the mountains, Rael looked down one last time at the sword's resting place. It was quiet again, but not asleep. Now. The sword was awake. And so was its new bearer. The stars stretched wide and endless outside the ship's window. Rael sat in the small pilot seat of the Rook, a gray, old shuttle with cracked panels and blinking lights. It had taken him years to repair it, and it still groaned during takeoff. But now, it flew smooth and steady through space. Valshi stood behind him, arms crossed, watching the galaxy drift past. She didn't speak much during flight. She spent most of her time studying the sword or staring at the star map. Rael broke the silence. So, how long will it take to reach Zereth? Valshi didn't look away from the stars. If the wayfinder is correct, for jumps, maybe 5. Rael tapped the screen. Then we'll get there. He smiled, but Valshi didn't return. Her face stayed calm to calm. You still don't trust me, do you? He asked. She glanced at him. I trust that you passed the trials. I trust that the sword chose you. But that does not mean I understand you. Rael raised an eyebrow. What don't you understand? You are human. You could go back to your world, stay safe, be free. Yet you chase after a forgotten people, risk your life for a war that ended long ago. Rael shrugged. Maybe it didn't end. Maybe it's still going, and no one noticed. Valshi studied him for a moment, then nodded, perhaps suddenly. A loud beep echoed from the ship's console. Rael leaned forward. We're picking up a signal. Valshi stepped closer. What kind? Rael pressed a few buttons. A strange symbol appeared on the screen, sharp lines, glowing red. The signal pulsed slowly, like a heartbeat. Valshi's face changed. Her eyes narrowed. That is karate code. Rail frowned. The same machines that destroyed your people? Yes, she said softly, and they know we're here. The ship shuddered. 3 dark shapes appeared in space ahead karate scout ships. They were long, sharp, and quiet, like black. Knives sliding through the stars. No lights, no markings, just red symbols pulsing from their sides. Rail's hands moved quickly across the controls. They're blocking our path. Valshi didn't panic. She stood tall, sword in hand. They must not take the blade. If they do, they will erase all who remain. Rail looked at her. I can't fight warships. Then we run, she said. Rail pulled the ship hard to the left. Stars blurred. The scout ships followed fast. Laser beams zipped past the window, missing by inches. Rail's heart pounded. I told you this ship's old. Use the mountains, Valshi said. Rail blinked. What mountains? She pointed to the map. That planet there, Ice World. We can lose them in the clouds. Rail punched the controls. The Rook dived toward the white and blue planet. The karate ships followed. Inside the planet's atmosphere, clouds thickened. Wind shook the shuttle. Lightning flashed below. Rail gripped the controls tightly. We're flying blind. Good, Valshi said. Rail gave her a confused look. Good. They are machines. She explained. They struggle in chaos. Rail smiled nervously. Guess I picked the right travel partner. He guided the ship into a long canyon of ice. The walls were steep. The turns were sharp. The karate followed but moved slower. Uncertain, Rail saw a wide ice tunnel ahead. Hold on. He flew into it. The tunnel twisted and turned. Rail barely missed the icy walls. Behind them, one of the scout ships clipped aside and exploded in a flash of red light. Valshi gave a short nod. 1 down. Rail grinned. 2 to go. After several minutes of dodging, twisting, and diving through frozen caves, the Rook shot out of the clouds and into space again. The remaining 2 ships were still behind them, but farther now. Rail turned to Valshi. We need a jump. Now. She raised the sword. It glowed bright blue, and the Wayfinder hummed. A portal opened ahead, a ring of soft light swirling in the stars. Rail flew into it just as the last enemy ship fired. The shot missed. Then everything turned white. The jump ended above a quiet planet. Green seas, floating islands, long rivers that glowed at night. Rail let out a deep breath. We made it. Valshi sat beside him now, still calm. You flew well, she said. Rail smiled. I learned from the best. She turned to the sword. The karate followed us. That means they still fear the blade. And if they fear it, it is power. Rail looked at her. Then what do we do next? Valshi tapped the map. We go to Zereth later. They rested inside the Rook. The ship floated quietly in orbit while repairs began. Valshi sat alone near a window, staring at the stars. The sword rested beside her. Rail walked in, holding the steaming cups. You drink tea? Valshi raised an eyebrow. What is tea? He handed her a cup. Try it. She took a sip and paused. It is warm. Rail laughed. That's kind of the point. There was a silence between them, not awkward, just still. Valshi finally spoke. You asked why I stayed sealed in the sword. Rail nodded. Yes, I didn't only wait for a warrior. She said, I waited because I was afraid. My people were gone. My world lost. I believed I had failed. Rail looked at her. But you didn't. You survived. And now you're not alone. She looked at him, eyes softer than before. No, I'm not. In the shadows of a distant planet, far across the stars, a large ship waited. Its hull was black as space. Its eyes were red as fire. Inside, machines watched the signal of the sword. The karate leader, a being of metal and memory, turned toward its soldiers. The blade has awakened. It said in a voice of static and ice, Find the human. Find the warrior. Its red eyes glowed brighter. Before hope spreads again. The stars outside the Rook spun slowly as the ship glided through space. Rail sat at the front, watching the stars shift with each jump. Valshi stood beside him, quiet, focused on the glowing map. They were close now. The Wayfinder blinked 3 times and showed a red mist ahead. That's it, Valshi said. The Zereth Nebula. My people once hid there. Rail stared at the screen. looks thick, like smoke in space. It is not natural, she replied. It was made by ancient shields meant to hide and protect what remained of our homeworld. Rael leaned back. Let's hope they still remember how to welcome visitors. Valshi looked at him. We do not need a welcome. We need the truth. As the rook entered the red mist, everything outside turned quiet. The stars disappeared. The sensors on the ship stopped working. Rael tapped the screen. I've lost the readings. Valshi placed her hand on the sword. It glowed softly. Let the blade guide us. She closed her eyes. The ship changed direction. As if pulled by something unseen, Rael didn't touch the controls. After a few minutes, a planet appeared through the mist, dark and cracked, surrounded by small moons. It looked broken, but not dead. Rael whispered, That's Zirith. Valshi's eyes filled with light. Yes, and someone is still alive down there. They landed on a wide plain, just outside the remains of an ancient city. The buildings were tall but bent, covered in vines and dust. A soft blue light glowed from deep underground as they stepped out. Rael noticed movement from the shadows. Figures came forward tall like Valshi, but thinner, older. Some wore armor, others wore long robes. Their eyes glowed faintly. They surrounded Rael and Valshi in silence. Then one stepped forward. She wore silver armor with a blue crest. Her voice was deep but gentle. Name yourself, warrior. Valshi bowed. I am Valshi of the Starborn. I bring news, and a bearer of the blade. The figures looked at each other. The leader stepped closer and looked at Rael. You are human. Rael nodded. Yes, I came with her. I didn't mean to take the sword that chose me. The leader studied him for a moment. Then she smiled. We feared the sword would be lost forever, but it still speaks. She turned to Valshi. Come, our people must hear your words. They entered the city. It was not like Earth's cities. No cars, no tall steel buildings. Instead, everything was made from smooth stone and glowing crystals. The streets curved gently, and the air felt calm. Inside a large hall, Valshi told her story. She spoke of the trials, of the sword, of the karate. The elders listened. Many lowered their heads. Some had tears in their eyes. Rael watched quietly. When Valshi finished, the hall was silent. Then the leader rose. Then we are not alone, she said. The sword has returned, and so has hope. She looked at Rael. And what do you seek? Human. Rael stood. I don't want power or control. I just want to help. You're not forgotten. And you don't have to fight alone anymore. Whispers filled the room. One elder asked, Why would a human risk so much for strangers? Rael thought for a moment. Then he said, Because you're not strangers now. Later that night, Valshi stood on a balcony overlooking the city. Rael joined her. You were right, she said quietly. Some of us survived. Rael smiled. More than you thought. They lost their spirit, she said. But now, I see a fire in their eyes again. Rael leaned against the railing. What now? Valshi turned to him. Now, we prepare. For what? He asked. The karate will come. They felt the sword wake. They fear it, and fear makes them dangerous. Rael nodded. Then we need to be ready. She placed the sword between them. Its glow was stronger now. This blade was once my guide, she said, but now I think it belongs to both of us. Rael looked at her. Partners? She nodded. More than that, we are a bridge between the old and the new, between my world and yours. The next morning, the city came alive. Lights were fixed, weapons were pulled from deep vaults, flyers were repaired. Valshi trained with young warriors, showing them the blade's ways. Rael worked with engineers, helping power the old systems. Even the elders joined, giving wisdom and stories from before the fall. Hope returned to Zirith, but far across the galaxy. The enemy was already moving, on a silent ship shaped like a giant claw. The karate leader stared at a glowing map. The blade has returned, it said. The Starborn wake. A smaller machine asked, Should we destroy them now? No, the leader replied. We must first crush their hope. It turned toward the stars. Prepare the fleet. Set course for Zirith, its red eyes pulse. Brighter. Let them believe in peace, Before we end it, back on Zereth, Rael stood beside Valshi as they watched the sky. The galaxy is big, he said. Do you think others will join us? If they believe we have a chance, she answered, they might. Rael looked at the stars. Then let's give them something to believe in. The sword glowed between them and far above. The wind of stars whispered of change. Zereth was no longer silent. In every corner of the city, lights flickered back to life. Walkways glowed, crystal towers hummed softly, and the air was filled with the sounds of voices. Footsteps and hope. For the first time in centuries, the Starborn moved with purpose again. Rael stood on a raised platform, watching groups of warriors train together. Some carried old weapons. Some held new ones built from scrap and memory. Valshi stood among them, sword in hand, teaching the blades' movements to the younger ones. She moved like flowing water, sharp, calm, and confident. Rael smiled. She had changed since the mountain. She still spoke with care and control. But now she laughed sometimes. She asked questions. She stood closer. And when Rael made mistakes while helping repair a broken flight drone, she didn't shake her head anymore. She helped him try again. The blade, once waiting in silence, now glowed bright every night, as if it felt the fire returning to the world it had lost. But peace didn't last long. A scout ship returned from the edge of the nebula, its pilot rushing into the city council hall. Rael and Valshi were called immediately. The meeting room was filled with worry. Starborn elders stood around a glowing table showing the sky. On it, red dots moved closer to ETH. The pilot pointed. Karate Fleet 14 ships, large ones. They found the path through the mist. A cold silence followed. Valshi spoke first. How long? 2 days, maybe less, the pilot said. Rael stepped forward. Can we stop them before they reach us? One elder shook his head. We have ships, but not many. We have warriors, but few have seen real battle. Another added, we can hide underground. Wait until they pass. Valshi raised her voice. We hid before. We waited before. And it nearly ended us. She placed the sword on the table. It glowed, and a soft hum filled the room. This time, she said, we stand. Rael stepped beside her. Not just to fight, but to show the galaxy we are still here. Alive, together. Some elders still looked unsure, but the leaderess nodded. We will stand. Preparation began quickly. The younger Starborn filled the sky with small ships, swift and light. Old defense towers came back to life. Energy shields sparked around key areas. Rael helped repair the city's main energy core. He worked side by side with alien engineers, learning fast. He even helped power up a large cannon hidden inside a mountain. Valshi trained a special group of warriors, chosen for speed and focus. She called them the Sky Guard. She handed Rael his own light armor, woven from silver threads. Looks heavy, he said. It's light, she replied. Just like your humor. He grinned. I'll take that as a compliment. She handed him the sword. This is yours now. Fight with it as your own. Rael held it carefully. It felt right in his hands. Like a memory becoming real. The night before the attack, the city held a gathering. Not a meeting. Not a war talk. Just people standing together under the stars. There were no speeches, only quiet songs, a soft wind, and eyes that looked toward the sky. Waiting for the morning, Rael sat beside Valshi on a high balcony. Are you scared? He asked. She didn't answer right away. Then she said, I was, for a long time. I feared my people would vanish without ever rising again. She turned to him. But now I see the truth. We didn't need to be many. We just needed to remember who we are. Rael nodded. You remembered, and now they do too. She looked at the sword in his hands. No, we remembered. Morning came with silence, then thunder. The sky cracked open. Black ships cut through the red mist like knives through cloth. The karate had arrived. 14 ships, cold, sharp, silent. They moved without sound, without warning. Their weapons glowed red. But Zereth was ready. From the city, Starborn fighters rose in waves. Blue shields covered the skies. Energy cannons lit up from mountain towers. The first karate blast hit the shield and held. Valshi stood on the main tower, watching every movement. Rail was beside her, sword in hand. A message came through the speaker system. A voice of metal and ice. You carry a forgotten weapon. It said, you hold a dream that has already ended. Surrender the blade, or be erased. Valshi pressed the button to reply. This is not a dream, she said. This is the beginning. The first battle began high above the city, Starborn. Ships moved like birds, circling, dodging, striking with speed. Karate vessels were slower, but strong. Their red beams hit hard, shaking the sky. Rail piloted a small flyer with Valshi in the seat behind him. Together, they flew through enemy fire, guiding the Skyguard into perfect strikes. Valshi called out targets. Rail flew straight and sharp. One enemy ship went down, then two. But the largest karate ship remained black and silent, watching. Rail glanced at it. Why isn't it moving? Valshi's face grew serious. Because it is waiting. It knows. This isn't the real battle yet. Rail looked confused. Then what is? She pointed to the ground. If they land, we must be ready. On the ground, Starborn warriors waited at key points. They stood in lines near crystal towers and deep trenches. Rail and Valshi returned to the city. Landing near the old temple, the sword pulsed in Rail's hand. Valshi turned to him. When the Karate step foot on this land, you will lead them here. Not to destroy them, but to remind them what they failed to end. Rail nodded. We show them we're not afraid. She placed a hand on his shoulder. You've become more than I hoped for, Rail. You're not just the sword's bearer. You are a bridge between stars. He smiled. Then let's make sure that bridge doesn't break. And as the karate dropships began falling from the sky, glowing like red fireballs, Rail and Valshi stood together at the heart of Zereth ready. The Starborn had returned. And this time, they would not fall. The ground shook as the karate dropships touched down outside the city of Zereth. Giant steel claws unfolded, and rows of armored beings marched out. Their faces were covered by glass helmets, their steps heavy, their numbers many. But the Starborn did not run. They stood in quiet rows, swords ready, eyes calm. At the center of it all stood Rail, his armor silver, his grip tight on the ancient sword that once rejected him. Now, it pulsed with a soft blue light, as if it knew the time had come. Valshi stood beside him, her own blade humming in her hand. Round them were warriors, farmers, builders, everyone who could hold a tool or a weapon, all ready. The enemy commander stepped forward. He was tall and strange, with smooth black armor and long fingers. His voice came through a speaker on his chest. Give us the blade, he said. We will leave your world in peace. Rail stepped forward. You attacked us. You tried to wipe out this world once already. Now you want peace? The commander tilted his head. The sword holds a secret we need. Hand it over, and no harm will come. Valshi's voice was strong and steady. We do not make deals with those who destroy. The sword in Rail's hand began to glow brighter. It was time. The first wave came fast. The karate charged like a storm, their weapons flashing, their armor shining under the sun. But the Starborn met them head-on. Rail moved through the field like wind. The sword seemed to guide his hands, blocking, spinning, striking with light and force. It didn't harm. It pushed, disarmed, and disabled with a touch of pure energy. Valshi moved beside him like lightning, calm, focused, every step filled with meaning. She used no words, only trust in those around her. The battle was not like the old ones of fire and ruin. It was something different, something the karate did not expect. They came to conquer but found unity. High above the city, the great karate ship finally moved. It released something new, a strange energy pulse that reached deep underground. Lights across the city flickered. Shields shook. The ground began to crack. Rail looked to the sky. They're trying to break the planet. Valshi nodded. They couldn't defeat us from the front. So now they want to destroy everything. Rail turned to her. We have to stop that ship. But how? She asked. We don't have enough ships to reach it. Rail looked at the sword. And then he understood. This sword is more than a weapon, he said. It remembers everything, the old paths, the machines, the sky. It can take us there. Valshi looked unsure. That has never been done. Not even by our greatest warriors. Rael met her eyes. Then we'll be the first. Together, they ran to the old mountain temple. There, buried beneath layers of stone, was a silver gatron and forgotten. Rael placed the sword in the center. It glowed bright. The ground rumbled with a loud hum. The gate opened, revealing a hidden ship, shaped like a bird, long and sleek. It had waited just like the sword had, waiting for someone to remember. Rael and Valshi climbed aboard. Lights flickered on. Engines hummed. It still works, Valshi whispered. Rael smiled. Let's go give them a memory they won't forget. The ship rose into the sky, fast and quiet, cutting through clouds toward the enemy flagship. The Korati ship saw them coming. Lasers fired. Missiles flew. But the old starborn ship danced between them, fast and smooth. It spun, dipped, and soared. Dodging each attack. Inside, Rael held the sword near the control crystal. The ship followed his thoughts, flying as if it had known him forever. Valshi watched the enemy ship grow closer. We only get one chance, she said. Rael nodded. Then let's make it count. They flew low, close to the enemy ship's core. Rael held the sword high. It glowed brighter than ever before, so bright it lit the sky. He brought it down into the control panel. A beam of energy shot forward, hitting the enemy ship's center. It didn't explode. It stopped. Every light on the Korati vessel dimmed. Every weapon fell silent. And then, the ship slowly drifted down, landing in the sea beyond the city. Back on the ground, the Korati troops froze. Their weapons powered down. Their helmets dimmed. Their leader looked to the sky, confused. The Starborn stopped to watching. Rael and Valshi landed softly at the city gate. Rael stepped out holding the sword. He faced the Korati leader. Your ship is done. Your power is gone. Now what will you choose? There was a long pause. Then, the Korati dropped his weapon. He knelt. And slowly, the rest followed. Later that evening, the city of Zirith stood quiet again, but not with fear. This time, it was peace. Lights glowed warmly. Children played in the streets. The sword was placed back in the temple, not because it was forgotten, but because it was safe. Rael stood with Valshi at the highest tower. She turned to him. You did what no one believed possible, even me. He shook his head. We did it, all of us, together. She looked at the stars. The sword waited 1,000 years, not just for a fighter, but for someone who believed. Rael smiled. Then, I'm glad I picked it up even if it didn't like me at first. Valshi laughed softly. It likes you now. He looked at her. What about you? She didn't answer with words. She simply stepped closer, and for the first time, the ancient sword glowed with a light that felt like home. And high above them, the stars watched in silence. The war had ended, but a new story was just beginning.